Hi, I'm Mike Zale, Ogden's town supervisor, and I'm back with a 10-minute Tuesday, sort of the conclusion of this educational piece that sort of says, what is town government? How does it function? Who has the roles and responsibilities? What are the different support boards that the town has, and so forth. Today, I really want to talk exclusively about the planning board and sprinkle in the conservation board. How does that sort of relate with the town board, and who has ultimate authority for different various types of construction projects here in town? In a previous video, we talked a little bit about what the town board does. It establishes a set of codes. These are really rules that everybody needs to follow, and there's a way to sort of get some relief from that code through the Zoning Board of Appeals. But the planning board is really tasked with making sure that certain construction projects are following the code to a T. There's no relief from the code that the planning board is able to grant. They can refer a project to the Zoning Board of Appeals to get that relief, and then it comes back to the planning board once they get it or it's denied. And then the planning board really has to follow the town code that the town board establishes in order to guide these construction projects through the process of, going from, the ground all the way up to completion for the project. So what's fascinating about the planning board is that they don't really have any jurisdiction over controlling zoning. So the town board gets the ability to rezone a property. And once that property is zoned a specific way, so let's say it moves from R1 residential to general commercial, the planning board now has to follow the code established for that property under general commercial. Which is totally different than residential. And so as a project moves through the various phases, they have to make sure that they've got a firm understanding of what it says in the town code in order to guide this project that they ultimately get to approve or deny. There's multiple facets of how a project moves through the planning board. So first of all, if a project ever comes to the town and says, hey, we want to develop this project, there's a whole bunch of things that happen in the background. First of all, we meet together with that developer, and we even let them know if this thing has a leg to stand on. We'll tell them right up front, you can go to the planning board, but it's going to get shot down. Or it doesn't have the proper zoning, so you need to go to the town board first. Or here's what the town is going to require. You need to have certain drainage. You need to have certain sewer hookups. You need to have all this other stuff. So all of that actually happens in the background. Nobody here makes the decision whether or not the planning board is going to approve or deny a project. Our goal is to make sure that the developer has all the information so that when they do go to the planning board, they're able to approach it in a way that fits the code, or that at least is presentable to the planning board to consider. So the first step in the planning board process is that they go in front of this thing called concept. So the developer goes in front of the planning board and presents it. And the planning board gets to then give them feedback. They can say, listen, it's too many units, or you need this access road, or you need to, put in sprinklers, whatever it is. It gives them feedback so that the developer goes, okay, there is at least a path forward, even if there's a number of steps we have to do to get there. After the concept phase, there's an opportunity for the public to come and speak. And that opportunity really is limited to one specific meeting before the project goes on too far. So residents can come and they can share their support or their concern, and then the planning board and the developer have the opportunity to make adjustments that may satisfy the residents, or maybe the concern that the resident has is not listed in the code. And unfortunately, what we hear often is, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that out my back window. And unfortunately, if it's not on your property, you don't really have jurisdiction to say, I don't like looking at it. The developer, like I've said a million times, they bought the parcel with the thought to develop. And that is a transaction between two entities that does not include the town. We don't get involved in private sale of property. Those two entities get together, A lot of times in this town, it's a farmer that sells a piece of their property to the developer. The developer purchases it with the intent of development, and the town doesn't even know about it. Not until they file their taxes and we see a transaction that took place. We don't intervene. We don't get involved. That is a private transaction that happens. That developer then goes to the town and petitions and says, hey, I would like to have this rezoned to this for the intention of building something. Now, that right there, the town board can squash the project immediately and say, we're not rezoning. And the town has done this numerous times. There's somebody who wants to develop something, and we understand what it is that they want to develop. We've had CarMax, we've had 7-Eleven, we've had Dollar Tree, Dollar Store, and all of those projects that came in, they needed a rezoning. And that's the only time that the town board can then say, no, we don't find that to be the right area or a feasible project, so we're just not going to rezone it, and then the project is dead. But there are other places like the Walgreens Plaza that's already been rezoned general commercial for 20, 30, 40 years even, where none of us have the luxury of saying, I'm sorry, but no, you can't develop there. That transaction happened, and now the developer has every legal right to develop. So the planning board has to follow the code of that zoning, and they get to determine if this project is too far out of the scope of the zoning, then they can deny the project. But what they can't deny is the specific company. You can't deny a project simply because you don't like it. You can't deny a project because you'd rather have one of their major competitors. You can only really deny the project once it's been rezoned because it doesn't fit code. That's really it. And what ends up happening is that the commercial entity just decides, you know what, it's not worth it to us to fit it within your code, so we're done. That's kind of what's happened with that Walgreens Plaza until it was purchased by Ellicott Development. But even in that, they've tried so many different business models to come in there, and the town has really said, this doesn't fit, that doesn't fit, this could fit. And so now we're at a spot where there are things that do fit, and they're allowed to do it. And I know people will say, we don't need another gas station, we don't need a car wash, we don't this, we don't that. At the end of the day, if a company comes in, wants to invest in the town, and what they're building fits the code, we don't get to say, hey, we already have 2 car washes. Hey, we already have a McDonald's. Hey, we already have this. Unfortunately, that is the law. They are allowed to come in and develop a piece of property that fits the right zoning. If they feel like their business model works, they're investing millions of dollars. Clearly, they think it's going to be successful, whether or not we think we need a second car wash or not. It's almost irrelevant from a legal standpoint. Very good feedback. Certainly, you can come to the public sessions and voice that concern and that opinion. But the planning board has to operate not from what they want or what they feel, but by what the law dictates. And in many cases, the law is the town code until it gets changed by the town board, like we've talked about previously. I mentioned in another video that we also don't have the ability to pick and choose certain businesses. So I don't get to just go bibbity boppity boo, and all of a sudden we've got this grocery store, right? Those entities have to come and actually want to be in the town of Ogden. They want the certain location, and they're going to say, this is what our building looks like. And if that doesn't fit, then they're not going to come into the town of Ogden. Ultimately, that's what I wanted to tell you about the planning board, and what I'll do is I'll throw this in. There is not a single project that gets developed in the town of Ogden without it going through a SECRA process, which really studies the environmental impact of any time that ground is broken in the town. This ultimately goes to the county, which does a review process, and it goes through our local conservation board made up of men and women that really take a look at this to really seek and understand better any type of environmental impacts that happen. If there are impacts, the project either has to morph or it just can't happen at all. Okay, so you've learned about the planning board, the zoning board, the town board, the conservation board, the role and responsibility of the supervisors, the town boards, and all of that stuff. And man, I hope that you've learned a lot. I hope that you'll watch these videos multiple times. Anytime you have a question about jurisdiction or authority, I really hope this is helpful for you to just understand that this role, this position, it gets all the accolades. It gets like, oh, the supervisor. I am a dad. I am a husband. I'm a father, soccer coach. I'm a resident. I pay taxes like everybody else. And my interest certainly is your interest. I've got neighbors. We've got codes that we want to follow. Nobody is exempt from following the rules, especially and including the supervisor and the town board members. I think sometimes our minds go towards federal politics and federal governance, and we have things like these No Kings protests. And truthfully, we don't even have executive power in the town, let alone a king. We have town board members that have to have a majority consensus in order for anything to go through. So I want you to be assured that this all has to be collaborative. And while we say we don't have jurisdiction over the county, the village, the school, anything else, what I really want you to know is that we build relationships, strong relationships with each one of those entities. We work with the school district every single day. We have intermunicipal agreements with them. We actually provide rock salt to the school and to BOCES and to other entities as well. We have IMAs with the village. We have IMAs with other towns. We work really great with the county. I love that I can reach the county executive by cell phone because we've built that relationship regardless of political parties. I can call Congressman Morelli. Today, I actually got contacted by the governor's office as it relates to rock salt and issues that all municipalities are having. They sent us an email, but then the person that works on behalf of the governor texted me. Why? Funny story. The person that texted me actually ran against me for county legislature a while back. And, he and I have stayed in communication because we've got a lot of mutual respect for each other. So even people that run against us can end up being allies down the road. And that's what's really, really, really important, that our relationships are rocket ships to making sure that we're all moving in the right direction. So I wanted to give you that. I wanted to give you some background, learn more about the rest of us and how this all works for your benefit. None of this matters if it is not for the residents of the town of Ogden. So I can't wait to continue building together. My office is always available if you have any thoughts, comments, or concerns. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being the best town in all of Monroe County. And I say that completely biased, but I love you guys, and I can't wait to do more with you in the future. Thanks so much. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.